Hello and welcome to The World Today on Channels Television. Thank you for joining us. I'm Anne Nwawadu. We begin in the United States, where a search is underway for a Speaker of the House of Representatives after Republican Kevin McCarthy was unexpectedly pushed out by right-wingers in his own party. The Republicans control the lower chamber of Congress, but with a very narrow majority, 8 rebels joined the Democrats on Tuesday night to oust Mr. McCarthy with a 216 to 210 final vote. This is the first time in the House Speaker, one of the top jobs in the United States politics, has been removed in this way.
Cam Logger Dove.
In a historic first in the United States, a small group of rebellious Republicans in the House of Representatives have succeeded in ousting their leader, Speaker Kevin McCarthy.
Declaring the office of Speaker of the House of Representatives to be vacant. Resolved that the office of Speaker of the House of Representatives is hereby declared to be vacant.
Tuesday's moment of high drama comes after the Republican-controlled House brought Washington to the edge of a partial government shutdown and the brink of a default earlier this year.
Chaos is Speaker McCarthy.
The rebellion was led by Representative Matt Gaetz, a far-right Republican from Florida, and McCarthy antagonist.
Mr. Speaker, my friend from Oklahoma says that my colleagues and I who don't support Kevin McCarthy would plunge the House and the country into chaos. Chaos is Speaker McCarthy. Chaos is somebody who we cannot trust with their word. The one thing that the White House, House Democrats, and many of us on the conservative side of the Republican caucus would argue is that the thing we have in common, Kevin McCarthy said something to all of us at one point or another that he didn't really mean and never intended to live up to.
In a debate on the House floor, Gaetz and a handful of allies criticized McCarthy for relying on Democratic votes to pass temporary funding to narrowly avert a shutdown. But McCarthy supporters warned their Republican gains would be at risk if they removed their leader in a vote.
Good friend from Louisiana, Mr. Scalise.
In the end, 8 Republicans voted with 208 Democrats to remove McCarthy from his post. Speaking after his ousting, Republican Speaker McCarthy says he has no regrets as party infighting plunges Congress into further chaos.
Doing the right thing isn't always easy, but it is necessary. I don't regret standing up for choosing governance over grievance. It is my responsibility. It is my job. I do not regret negotiating. Our government is designed to find compromise. I don't regret my efforts to build coalitions and find solutions. I was raised to solve problems, not create them. So I may have lost a vote today, but as I walk out of this chamber, I feel fortunate to have served the American people.
The 216 to 210 vote marked the first time in history that the House removed its leader.
While reacting to this, some Republicans have spoken out against the ousting of Speaker Kevin McCarthy, saying it has left the party in disarray. Representative Nicole Malliotakis said the Republicans need to learn to stick together to fight Senate Democrats calling for unity in the party. The ousting is the latest moment of high drama in a year when the Republican-controlled House brought Washington to the brink of a catastrophic default on U.S. debt of $31.4 trillion and a partial government shutdown.
People threw us into disarray. They didn't have a plan going in, and now we'll see who steps up is interested in running. I think there's a lot to be seen over the next few days because there's so much at stake right now between an unsecured U.S.-Mexico border, between our national debt, deficit, spending, the inflationary environment that the Biden administration has put us in, the Biden administration's war on energy. We've allowed 11 people to create a major distraction to the working American people.
It's not about Speaker McCarthy. It's a personal thing. What he's done is he undermined the entire conference and took away our leverage. In the next 42 days that we're supposed to be here to work on these appropriation bills, Republicans need to learn to stick together, and we need to learn that we got to fight the Senate Democrats, not each other, who want to get something done, including securing our borders.
The unprecedented ouster of the Speaker of the U.S. House of Representatives is indicative of the disintegration of the Republican Party. And that's according to an analyst, Princeton University historian Sean Willens, who says this amounts to a victory for former President Donald Trump. He further adds that Mr. McCarthy's ouster by a wing of the Republican Party close to Mr. Trump allows the former president to achieve some of the goals his supporters failed to when they stormed the U.S. Capitol on January the 6th, 2021, in an attempt to overturn the 2020 election results. The House looked set to go leaderless for at least 1 week, as multiple Republicans say they planned to meet on October the 10th to discuss possible successors, with a vote on a new speaker planned for October the 11th.
It's the first time that a sitting speaker's ever been ousted, so it's unprecedented in that sense. There have been earlier moments in American history where there's been a great deal of trouble electing a speaker, particularly around the 1850s. There was a great deal of trouble there, and votes, finally getting people in the chair. I mean, it's a sign, I think, if history is any guide at all to this, it's a sign of a party in disintegration. I mean, that's what's happening, and it's melting down, and that's pretty clear. That's the older history. The more recent history, I think, is that what we're seeing today is the latest installment in the, ever continuing coup d'etat by Donald Trump. I mean, that's what we're seeing. And it's pretty clear that he's the hidden hand in a lot of this stuff that's been going on, that I think probably the next step would be a shutdown, which is really what they're probably aiming for. They wanted to get McCarthy out of there in part because he stood in the way of that. Bunch of reasons, but that's part of it. And it's the politics of chaos. And I do think this is a triumph for Donald Trump. Anytime that you have the order being overthrown, I mean, he's managing to do now what he couldn't do in January 6th with his takeover of the House of Representatives, and doing it with his own people. You don't have to have crazy, shamans with crazy horns doing it. You can do it with Matt Gaetz.
Joining us now is Kadri Dogan, an international affairs analyst based in Washington, D.C., but is currently in Cairo, Egypt. Hello, Kadri. Thank you so much for joining us on The World Today.
Good to be here.
So let's begin with your thoughts on the ousting of House Speaker Kevin McCarthy. I mean, this is the first of its kind happening in U.S. politics. What do you think?
Well, it's definitely an unprecedented situation, and a couple of things I just want to point out so that everyone knows just how strange this situation is. First of all, this isn't what you would normally think of as a disagreement between parties. This is about a disagreement within the same party, the Republican Party. This isn't about some specific disagreement with the Democrats. Second, and this is the part that is so incredibly curious, the small faction of Republicans that decided to pursue getting rid of Speaker McCarthy, led by Representative Matt Gaetz of Florida, they focused so much on getting rid of Kevin McCarthy, which they successfully did, but they didn't stop to think who would replace him. And that just shows a lack of strategy, because in our Constitution, after the president, the next in line is the vice president. And then after the vice president is the Speaker of the House of Representatives. And so I don't think it's a responsible leader that's making us not have a House of Representatives speaker for a week just because of infighting in a party.
But Kadri, how did the United States even get to this place in the first place? How did this all come together?
I think in general, as the professor was saying before me, it's about chaos, that's what Donald Trump likes, and that the people who follow him in Congress are looking for chaos. I think what's interesting in this particular situation, it's Kevin McCarthy's former speaker, and here's why. After the deal on avoiding the shutdown less than a week ago that he made with the Democrats did him a favor by helping him, by giving support with votes that he couldn't get from Republicans. More Democrats voted for the Republican shutdown bill than Republicans did. But the very day after it, Kevin McCarthy went on TV and said that the reason we got so close to a shutdown was because Democrats were an obstacle. Now, because he said that, when Kevin McCarthy needed Democratic votes, and he only needed about 6 or 7, they could have voted present or not been present at the vote, and that would have allowed Kevin McCarthy to win. But he ruined all goodwill with Democrats, and we saw what happened. They didn't help him, and he lost his job.
But who actually benefits from this ousting?
Donald Trump benefits from the ousting, one, because he gets to show how much control he has over Republicans in the House of Representatives. And also, two, the more that they are focusing on more voters, and the news is focusing on the infighting with the Republicans and the ups and downs of that, they're not focusing on the fact that Donald Trump is currently in court with his own legal issues. And so if there's a shutdown, for example, after the 45-day agreement, that will hurt the economy, and Donald Trump will try to use that in his campaign. So Donald Trump is the winner, the biggest winner in all of this.
Recall, Mr. McCarthy relied on Democratic votes to get a short-term spending deal, which was passed on Saturday to avert a government shutdown, bringing him accusations of making a secret side deal with President Biden on Ukraine aid. But just to divert for a bit, why is the U.S. pumping so much to Ukraine at the detriment of its own local issues, knowing the huge debts it's already raising at the moment?
That's a good question. And it's a question that a lot of Americans that we have. I think that there are two problems. One is I definitely can understand the argument for supporting Ukraine. But President Biden, his administration, nor Republicans who agree with him have made that case to the American people effectively. So, of course, Americans are going to wonder why we can't have money for our local schools, yet we can send billions to Ukraine. That's an argument that a lot of Americans are making. And I think the reason that happens is most of our leaders, Republican and Democrat, are 70 and above. They have a Cold War mentality where it's everything against Russia to make sure Russia doesn't get the upper hand. And I don't think that mentality really reflects the current geopolitical reality that we're in.
But what impact, if any, does this have on U.S. politics going forward, especially considering the election is just next year, 2024?
I think that it has two effects. One's process and one's politics. Process means that since Donald Trump, like him or not, we do unprecedented things now. We used impeachment twice before Donald Trump. He was impeached twice while in his first term, and now Republicans are trying to impeach Biden now. So by process, Trump knocked the conventions out of the way, and people aren't afraid to do things that before they would have been afraid to do, like fire the speaker randomly without having a replacement. Now, for politics, I think for the election in November 2024, it benefits Joe Biden because Joe Biden has a problem with age with a lot of voters, and on issues like immigration and the economy, he's doing an okay job. But guess what? When voters look at the alternative, Donald Trump and the Republican Party in disarray, that boosts support for Biden as the only feasible alternative.
But we also understand that a vote for a new speaker is expected to take place on October the 10th. But what are the possible successors? And explain to us how this is expected to pan out.
Well, they're going to have a problem because the group that forced this situation now, they're conservative. They love chaos. They want a speaker that's conservative like them. But one thing Kevin McCarthy said that's correct, the U.S. government doesn't work like that. If they select a conservative, it still has to get past the Democratic Senate and the Democratic White House. If they choose someone who's too moderate, then the Trump faction won't like them because they don't believe they're conservative enough. So it's going to be really interesting to see who they pick. I do think the most likely choice is Steve Scalise. He's among Republican leadership, but unfortunately, he was just diagnosed with cancer and is undergoing treatment. And I don't know if this is something he would be willing to take on right now.
All right. Thank you very much, Calvin Dock, an international affairs analyst based in Washington, D.C., speaking to us from Cairo, Egypt. Thanks a lot for your time and your contribution on The World Today.
Thank you.
And still ahead on The World Today, we'll give you an update on Tuesday's mall shooting in Thailand. Tourists are still in shock even as families bury their loved ones. Details of this and more in a moment. Please stay with us. Kremlin is not happy with Armenia that has acted in an unpartner-like manner towards Russia by subjecting itself to the jurisdiction of the International Criminal Court. Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov told a briefing that Moscow regarded Yerevan as an ally, but had questions for its current leadership, which will now have to arrest Mr. Putin should he visit Armenia due to an outstanding ICC warrant against him. On Tuesday, Armenia's parliament ratified the founding statute of the International Criminal Court, subjecting itself to the jurisdiction of the court in The Hague. In the meantime, a majority of Armenians in central Yerevan say they believe that joining the ICC is the right step for their own country to even take, though this might anger Russia. The move, approved by 60 MPs with 22 against it, irritated Russia, the main ally of the small South Caucasian nation. Russian-Armenian ties have been badly strained by Moscow's invasion of Ukraine and Russia's inaction as Armenia's neighbor, Azerbaijan, recaptured Nagorno-Karabakh in a region which is a region controlled for 3 decades by ethnic Armenians, most of whom have now fled the region. Joining the ICC means that Armenia will be obliged to arrest Russian President Vladimir Putin if he steps foot there, because the court, of course, had issued an arrest warrant on him on suspicion of illegally deporting hundreds or more of children from Ukraine, which is a claim dismissed by the Kremlin as meaningless.
Between our nations, there will be no change. I mean, the simple people, it won't make any change in relations with simple people. And about politicals, well, that's their problem. So, first of all, is security of Armenia and good relation with all the countries in the world, and it's the most important. Well, I would be very happy if they did that, but I'm not sure they will do it. But really, I would be happy to hear that we are so strong that we can do that, because we have to be strong to make that step, and it will bring only good for this planet.
I think Russia will be angry with Armenia anyway. We will accept it or not. It doesn't matter. It doesn't change anything. Any country, it's very important for Armenian state that we accepted Roman status. Or I don't know what will happen, but it's not. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter for Putin to come or not, or anybody to come. Or it shows that Armenia independent state.
U.S. Department says that it is going to continue to play a role in engaging with Azerbaijan and Armenia to bring about lasting peace. The deputy spokesperson, Vedant Patel, says that Armenia's decision to join the International Criminal Court was also an idea.
We respect the right of every country to join the ICC and have been encouraged by many states, including Armenia, that have undertaken commitments to promote justice, accountability for genocide, war crimes, and crimes against humanity. What I will say, though, is that the United States is going to continue to play a role in engaging with Azerbaijani and Armenian leadership at the highest levels to pursue a dignified and durable peace. And you've also seen us over the course of this past week and beyond reiterate our call for a longer-term, independent, international monitoring mission in Nagorno-Karabakh to provide transparency and reassurances that the rights and securities of ethnic Armenians will be protected, particularly for those who may wish to return and for the protection of cultural heritage sites, which all, of course, is in line with Azerbaijan's public statements and their international obligations as well.
Meanwhile, Estonia is calling on the European Union to reconsider the relationship with Azerbaijan. Estonian member of the European Parliament, Marina Kaldurand, demanded this during a plenary session of the European Parliament on Baku's military offensive in Nagorno-Karabakh.
The EU should reconsider its relations with Azerbaijan and make them conditional. We have to stop with appeasement. There must be immediate consequences for the Aliyev regime. A year ago, Commission President von der Leyen was in Baku, standing next to President Aliyev and praising Azerbaijan for being EU's reliable economic partner. Today, the Commission must make it crystal clear that Azerbaijan's actions, starting from military actions and concluding with forced displacement of the population of Nagorno-Karabakh, that de facto constitutes ethnic cleansing, are not acceptable. The response should include sanctioning of responsible Azerbaijani authorities, halt of negotiations on a new EU-Azerbaijan agreement, halt of visa facilitation agreement, and termination of the gas deal.
The EU has condemned Azerbaijan's use of force in Nagorno-Karabakh against its earlier assurances and commitment to seek a diplomatic solution. The use of force over diplomacy is never justified. As of this weekend, more than 100,000 Karabakh Armenians have left their homes and sought refuge in Armenia. It remains unclear how many will remain in Nagorno-Karabakh. The EU has stressed that there is a pressing need for transparency and access for international humanitarian and human rights actors.
European MEPs are now calling for 10 billion euros in additional funding from the bloc to top up the 65.8 billion budget proposed by the European Commission. And this is coming after European Parliament President Roberta Metsola admitted that the EU's credibility is at stake as she addressed the bloc's budget during a press conference in Strasbourg. She adds that COVID-19, the Russia-Ukraine conflict, inflation, the cost of living and natural disasters had all taken concrete toll on EU's finances. However, all 27 member states will need to sign off on any increase.
I want to be clear and unambiguous. There is an urgent need to revise our long-term budget, and there are two main reasons for this, which I will outline in accordance with my institutional role: the pandemic, Russia's brutal invasion of Ukraine, natural disasters, rising inflation, and a cost of living crisis has taken its very concrete toll on our budget. Rising interest rates have pushed up our next generation EU borrowing costs. The combined effect of all of this is that the EU's budget is stretched to its limit. We must acknowledge this, and we have a duty to react.
At least 21 people, including several children, have died after a bus crashed off a flyover near Venice and burst into flames. Officials say the bus broke through the barrier and plunged almost 50 feet near railway tracks in the district of Mestre, which is connected to Venice by just one bridge. 5 Ukrainians, 1 German, and the Italian driver are among the dead. The bus carrying 39 people crashed on Tuesday evening. The vehicle is thought to have been a hybrid powered by electric batteries and methane gas. Italian media reports suggest the gas tank exploded on impact and the batteries caught fire, making the task of clearing the bus a complex operation. And joining us now is VOA's correspondent, Sabina CastelFranco in Rome for more on this very sad story. Hello, and thank you for joining us on The World Today.
My pleasure.
And we begin on a sad note. I mean, what a very unfortunate incident. But what's the update on that accident at this point?
At this point, some of the ones that survived, obviously there are 21 victims at this point. Some are still in very critical condition. They have been taken to 5 different hospitals near Venice, in and around Venice. And, the doctors are doing all they can to try to save them. Although, as I said, there are some in very critical condition. It was a terrible plunge of 50 feet, as you said. The bus broke the barrier, the guardrail, and hit some electricity lines as it fell. Then it overturned and burst into flames. The wreckage was terrible, as the Venice mayor called it. It was an apocalyptic sight. And he's never seen anything like this before. He has now declared 3 days of mourning in Venice, and masts are flying at half-mast because the flags are flying at half-mast because of what happened last night. It was about 7:30 p.m. when the incident occurred, when the accident happened.
Sabina, we also understand this was a tourist bus. Have we been able to identify the victims?
Well, we don't have names and last names, although their families have been informed. What we do know is that 5 of the victims were Ukrainians, 1 was German, and that on the bus, they were all tourists, some very, very young. 2 children died. And there were also French, other Germans, Croatians, and Spaniards. So, yes, they were all traveling back from Venice after having spent a day in Venice. They were being taken back on the bus to the campsite where they were staying. The driver, in fact, was a 40-year-old Italian who died on impact. He was a very experienced driver and had only just started his shift when this accident occurred.
Very unfortunate. And we've had different stories. I mean, some said it's a hybrid powered by electric vehicles and gas. And there are already varying reports on the cause of this accident. But what are officials saying about this incident?
Well, at the moment, the authorities are saying that the most likely scenario is that the driver actually fell ill. In some sort of a way, that's what, it was an unpredictable situation. Although, the guardrail, some people claiming that the guardrail was old and not strong enough. And of course, the fact that it was a vehicle with methane gas, made it burst into flame much faster. As I said, it was a very horrible sight. But it is very unfortunate if the driver fell ill. This is something that can happen. Apparently, it went 50 meters along the guardrail before actually plunging down the 50 feet onto the ground next to railway tracks.
I mean, I can imagine how people around the world are feeling about this, but how are Italians reacting to this unfortunate incident?
Well, particularly in Venice, people are distraught. A lot of people actually going to the site of the accident. I mean, the mayor of Venice himself has said he has, crossed that overpass many, many times. And so have most Venetians who now are living on the mainland rather than in the historic center along the Venice canals. So that is a very, very busy overpass that, both tourists and locals, residents of Venice cross every day. So yes, Italians were horrified. When I found out last night as it happened and the news was breaking, it was just dreadful news. And this is not the first time that a bus accident happens in Italy. We've seen another terrible accident in 2017, another one in 2013. So obviously everyone is trying to decide what needs to be done. And I must say that the 2 black boxes that were on this bus to try to ascertain what actually happened, the dynamics of this accident, have been recovered. So soon there will be more news on this.
All right. Thank you very much, VOA's correspondent Sabina CastelFranco in Rome. Thanks for your contribution and the updates you've given to us on the world today.
My pleasure.
Tourists in Bangkok have expressed shock at a shooting incident that took place in a luxury mall in the Thai capital on Tuesday, which is the latest high-profile gun violence to rock the country in recent years. Well, police have arrested the teenage suspect for the shooting that killed 2 foreigners, one from China and the other from Myanmar, and wounded 5 people. And some tourists also believe the shooting incident might cause Chinese tourists to look elsewhere for their next holiday destination.
The government of Thailand is very sad that it happened, but I believe that the aftermath of the incident, the management of the Siam Paragon have done the best that they can. And we hope that this will just be one of the incidents that would never happen again. The government is placed a lot of importance on this issue.
Meanwhile, family members of the Myanmar national who was killed has received the body of their loved one at the police morgue. The teary-eyed relatives of the national burned incense sticks before the victim's coffin, which was loaded onto an ambulance and driven off to a local temple where final funeral rites were performed. A small boat carrying 280 migrants have landed in Spain's Canary Islands. Authorities are saying the vessel arrived on the remote island of El Hierro, which is some 380 kilometers off Africa's western coast, on Tuesday. Rescue workers said that those on board were of sub-Saharan African origin, and it was the largest number of migrants ever to arrive in the archipelago region in just one journey. The crossing to the Canary Islands is one of the most commonly used and dangerous routes to Europe for migrants from Africa. Britain's Interior Minister is warning that the United Kingdom is facing a hurricane of migration. Speaking at the Conservative Party conference in Manchester, Suella Braverman said the United Kingdom had become tied up in an international set of migration rules that were designed for another era. British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak, who took office last year, has made stopping the arrival of migrants in small boats across the English Channel a priority. However, the United Kingdom's government policies, such as sending asylum seekers to Rwanda, have so far failed to take off.
Now, one of the most powerful forces reshaping our world is unprecedented mass migration. The wind of change that carried my own parents across the globe in the 20th century was a mere gust compared to the hurricane that is coming. That the future could bring millions more migrants to these shores, uncontrolled and unmanageable, unless the government they elect next year acts decisively to stop that happening. And we are the only party that will take effective action. Let me tell you, our country has become enmeshed in a dense net of international rules that were designed for another era. And it is Labour that turbocharged their impact by passing the misnamed Human Rights Act. I'm surprised they didn't call it the Criminal Rights Act.
Just in a moment, when the world today returns. A 104-year-old woman shows that age is nothing but just a number as she goes skydiving in Chicago. You don't want to miss that. We'll bring you the details. Please stay with us. Welcome back. Typhoon Koinu has landed in Taiwan, grinding towards the southern region, bringing heavy rain and winds as authorities ask local residents to stay away from coastal areas. According to Tropical Storm Risk, Koinu is expected to make landfall on Taiwan's southeastern coast near the city of Taitung on Thursday morning as a Category 3 typhoon, but then weakening as it crosses the island's southern tip and then enters the Taiwan Strait. In Taitung, fishermen called the scene securing their boats at a local dock as government workers race against time to build sandbags in anticipation of the storm. Local weather authorities say the heaviest rain will fall among mountainous and sparsely populated parts of Pitstung County in the south and then the east coast counties of Taitung and Haolian. More than 100 flights have been cancelled, while businesses and schools in urban areas of southern parts of the island is suspended. 23 Indian troops have been reported missing after a flash flood caused by sudden heavy rain in the northeastern state of Sikkim. Footage shows a swollen Testa River in Singtam region and people walking on flooded flood paths. But the defense spokesperson says the rising water submerged some vehicles following the release of water from the dam. Army officials also add that intermittent rain and thunder showers are hampering rescue operations in that area. Scientists Mongwe Bawendi, Louis Bruce, and Alexei Ekimov have all won the 2023 Nobel Prize in Chemistry for the discovery and synthesis of quantum dots. But the Royal Swedish Academy of Sciences say the Nobel laureates have succeeded in producing particles so small that their properties are determined by quantum phenomena. The particles, which are called quantum dots, are now of great importance in nanotechnology. But nanoparticles and quantum dots are used in LED lights and TV screens, and they can also be used to guide surgeons while removing cancer tissues. The third of this year's crop of awards, the Chemistry Nobel, follows those from medicine and physics, which were announced earlier this week. The more than century-old, worth 11 million Swedish crowns, with almost $1 million in prize money.
The Royal Swedish Academy of Sciences has decided to award the 2023 Nobel Prize in Chemistry in equal shares to Mongwe Bawendi, Massachusetts Institute of Technology, MIT, USA; Louis Bruce, Columbia University, USA; and Alexei Ekimov, Nanocrystals Technology Incorporated, USA, for the discovery and synthesis of quantum dots.
Catholic activists are demanding a greater role for women within the church just hours before the opening of the Synod of Bishops in the Vatican. The women gathered near Castel Sant'Angelo, dressed in pink and unrolling a tapestry with a message, "Ordained Women," on it. Pope Francis on Wednesday opens a global summit of bishops on potentially momentous issues for the Roman Catholic Church, including the role of women. The October 4 to 28 meeting, known as the Synod, brings together 365 members with voting rights, including for the first time 54 women, as well as about 100 other participants, such as observers and delegates from other Christian churches.
We are here with a huge symbolic extension of the synodal tent, a big tapestry that has the message "Ordained Women" on it, as an extension of the Vatican synodal tent. So we're here to make sure that all voices are included, all vocations are welcomed, and all votes are counted. And we hope that it's heard within the Synod Hall. We know that Synod participants are gathering inside, and we know that women's ordination is on the agenda. So we're here in support of those conversations, and we hope that they continue to be courageous, bold, and inclusive.
And in the Brazilian state of Rio de Janeiro, the famous Christ the Redeemer statue lit up in bright pink to commemorate Breast Cancer Awareness Month. The iconic 130-foot monument, which looks out over Rio's scenic beaches and mountains, was bathed in pink light as breast cancer patients and campaigners gathered to watch the spectacle. The event was organized by the non-profit organization Fundação Laco Rosa, which is Pink Bow Foundation. It gathers patients with that disease, hoping that thousands of people would look up and see the landmark statue lit in the color, which has been associated with breast cancer awareness campaigns. Every October, people around the world celebrate Breast Cancer Awareness Month, all to raise awareness on the disease and encourage people to take steps for early detection, including getting early mammograms. And a Chicago woman may soon see her name in the Guinness Book of World Records as the oldest skydiver in the world. 104-year-old Dorothy Hoffner left her walker behind as she did a 13,500-foot tandem leap from an airplane at Skydive Chicago in Ottawa, Illinois. Well, Hoffner was met with huge round of applause once her feet returned to solid ground, even though the centenarian herself says that she does not even see what all the fuss is about. The Guinness World Record for oldest skydiver was set back in May 2022 by 103-year-old Lena Einegard Larsson from Sweden. Hafner is still waiting for her own record to be certified. The Chicagoan is set to turn 105 in December. She says that she would like to take things very easy next summer by going on a hot air balloon ride.
Yes. Dorothy. Awesome job. That was amazing.
We may have been about 5 feet from the plane in a big gust of wind. And it was a piece of wind. It turned us over. So I think we did a somersault, and I thought that was so much fun. When you feel good, you can do these things. Sometimes you might have a little fear or scare of doing it, but if you feel good, do it. I didn't do any moving around, just going straight down. Because it's a wonderful feeling. To see the earth under you, so pretty. And yesterday Sunday was a beautiful day, and all that green grass down there, wonderful. I really don't know. But it just sounded like fun to me. And it was fun. Great. Well, I think if you have the opportunity to go, go and enjoy it. And you would enjoy it.
Well, they say age is just a number. Well done to her. And that's it on The World Today. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Anne Mwawadu. Stay safe.